to another episode of KCC Revision. Just as I had promised, my name is Edwin Nyongesa. If you want to support us, you can subscribe to this channel, like, comment, and also share. Now, in our last episode, we were looking at how you can write a sparkling imaginative composition that will fetch you an A category, and I took you through those categories and how to avoid scoring lowly in imaginative composition. I had also promised that we will look at a sample imaginative composition and analyze it with you in terms of its strength and weaknesses. So here we are with the sample imaginative composition. Read with me, will you? Write a story that begins with the following sentence. When I left home that bright Sunday afternoon, I did not realize that the events of the next few days would completely change my life. So this is a sample extracted from a collection of imaginative compositions by students. So this student, the title of their composition is Alone, and this is what they wrote. When I left home that bright Sunday afternoon, I did not realize that the events of the next few days would completely change my life. Arrogance is bestowed to all in the teenager age. That's what makes teenagers. One isn't a child anymore, but is still far from being an adult. Crater Lake was the venue, and the feeling of going there with my friends could fill the lake. With all my excitement, I had packed my clothes, bought all I needed, and saved enough money for the stay. All was set except, of course, for the parent consent form, which today, being the day before departure, was supposed to be handed in. Why hadn't I done the last tasks that would have assured my once in a lifetime experience that I had yearned for so much? Well, three standing spoken words did. What were they again? Yes, I remember. I think not. What was there for my father to think about? I had passed my exams. I had waited till my results had come out to ask for permission, and I had ever paid for the trip myself. I was not about to live an obedience is better than sacrifice sort of life anymore. Ever since my mother died, my father always thought it was his right to bully me, making me go wherever he wanted, eat whatever he cooked, even setting the time for me to take a bath. Time had come to cut a niche for myself. As the teacher took my consent form, she had this expression of suspicion. I couldn't blame her as I was the last one to hand it in. That Saturday evening, I was alone in my room, planning how after work in church I would go for the trip. It was successful. My plan had worked, and my eminent shouting and yelling in the bus was a means of boasting of how clever I was. Though for the first few hours I had a single thought in my mind: why hadn't I answered the phone? The phone call that rang just before I left the house was haunting me and was starting to seem so important. For 4 days after I had turned my back on the call, I came to learn that it was my father on the other end. While I was on the Mombasa highway off to Nakuru from Mombasa, my father lay in a car wreck. It dawned on me later on that he must have tried countless times before his body finally gave in to the loss of blood. The mobile phone he had used showed that he had only tried calling me. A day after he had been admitted, the house number had again been called. Who was there to pick the phone? Who else was to but the imaginary me who hadn't gone for the trip? The blood bank had only 3 pins of the blood group O negative. The donor lived in Nyandarua. Here was a 47-year-old widower with only one son who was not there to save his life. 3 days later, the doctor could do nothing as he needed blood, and they couldn't make blood. So at 7 a.m. he passed on. I arrived at 3 a.m. with a feeling of emptiness and fear in my heart. Surely my father was going to have my my hind for this sort of defiance. At home, there was Uncle Dodi, Auntie Imelda, and my grandparents and very many relatives. All were wearing facial expressions of trying to hold back tears. That feeling of fear did not leave me. It held on to my chest, but differently. It choked me, and it was fear I had never felt before. When the truth was revealed to me, a void engulfed my whole being. I was indeed alone, all alone. So that is our imaginative composition. Now, what are some of the strengths? In fact, it falls under class A, awarded 17 out of 20. The strengths of this imaginative composition is a relevant story. That's the first thing. It's a relevant story. It has many items of merit, correct use of vocabularies, felicity of expression, um, this story is also well organized. The composition is well organized. There's good organization of the composition, and then it also appeals to senses. As I told you, you kind of sympathize with the writer and what have you. There's use of stylistic devices such as rhetorical questions and suspense and what have you. Generally, there's felicity of expression, and then weaknesses of this imaginative composition, there are some errors and slips. And then some redundancies can also be noted. And then there's a wrong use of contractions. Remember, we said that contractions should be used in direct speech, and this one is using in prose and so on. But overall, it's a good piece, bearing in mind that it's written by a student, and this means that there's a lot of potential in our students if we nurture them well, and if you do a lot of practice, you'll be in for good score. So that is it. Next time we'll move on to how to write an essay in English paper 3. Remember, if you have liked this content, hit the subscription button. You can also like, share, and comment to help the content reach more people. Until next time, it is bye bye.